So there's two things I want to cover. One is, though, how is this helpful? Is this helpful to everyday people? And then another...
Yeah, because it sounds pretty out there. I certainly realize that.
And you could talk about in terms of your life, has it been helpful?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that might be...
Let's see. Through this kind of inquiry, it can be seen that whatever would appear as or seem to be a separate sense of Peter, as a separate personality that has its own personal life, that has to fend for itself, that is one among many other separate lives, separate objects, with all its little concerns relative to the overall picture of life, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
All the would-be worries and fears and suffering. From this perspective of that just seems to be a fleeting, very ethereal, wispy form that comes and goes. All of the things you'll notice in this very conversation we're having, how what seemed to have been the points we were talking about 3 minutes ago, and the gestures that the Peter body was making and the Jordan body was making, where is that now, right this instant? It's gone, like stuff in a dream is just kind of ephemeral. It doesn't have any permanent presence. And to see that what that normally, in normal everyday experience, we are identified with all that constantly fleeting, passing form stuff, this form, all the thoughts that are constantly coming and going, all the feelings that are constantly coming and going, that is assumed to be a me. And daily living is based on trying to satisfy all the needs and the wants and the dissatisfactions of that so-called me. But from this perspective, as, if you want to say, the unfindable noticer, or from the infinite, which is formless and ever-present, it's the most, quote, even though there's nothing there, it's the most stable thing there is, because there's nothing there that can be divided or broken down or destroyed. But anyway, in sort of comparison, everything that pretends to be Peter's experience and so important is sort of seen through. It's not a reality. That doesn't mean it's belittled, or there's an attempt to get rid of it, or you don't look down your nose upon it. Okay, it appears to be there, but it's kind of like that mirage. Okay, there appears to be a mirage there, but I'm just going to go right on ahead with what I'm doing, and I'm not going to accept it at face value. And so with that, there's no longer a clinging to all of the mental and emotional churning that seems to go on when there's an identification with all of those thoughts and emotions and things that go with being the body. It's let go of. And that means less stress in everyday living, much less stress, much less fear, much less worry, and much less concern about tomorrow or regrets over a so-called past. We didn't really talk about time too much and presence, but there's like a releasing of all of that, where it's seen through and it doesn't get at you. There's no longer the resonation with it, which makes for very unpleasant day-to-day living.
Okay, and then is there a point, a point at which, so what I've noticed with you as a teacher from yesterday in the workshop, for example, your ability to stay right here. It's like you and other teachers too. Is like you're not telling me what you think you know. I mean, you didn't read this in a book; you wrote it in a book. You're coming from a place that this is how it is. There's no question in your mind.
Yes.
Or beyond your mind.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's a good way of putting it.
That this is how it is.
Yeah, and a big part of that is that anyone who's watching this video, going to end up watching this conversation right now, is don't take Peter's word or Jordan's word for any of this, but see if it, so to speak, holds up right where you are. To take it out of the realm of a personal point of view.
Okay.
And that, let's say that this is something that, don't attach this to Peter at all. As if this is something that a Peter is saying as opposed to what's found in another book or what this other so-called teacher said or so on. Because that's to miss it entirely. And just see right where you are, so to speak, if, as we say, that which we call awareness can be found or pinned down or located as a something. If you try, if you're sincere and you try, you're not going to be able to do it. And in the same way, see if it's possible. We were saying earlier, just to make the little, it's not really a connection here, but just to show, we were talking about awareness. It has no form, no shape, also no time duration. And you hear in non-duality increasingly, in fact, the word presence or presentness. I like it's even a little bit more zeroed in, I think. But see if it's possible to, or the now. We hear about the now an awful lot. Can it be said that the now, this now that is right now, it can't be, is it possible to think what now is? No. It's possible to attempt, you can try to have a thought about what now is, but that isn't the now that is now. Can thinking make now not be now? No. Can it make now be more present, like double its intensity or something? No, it can't. It's not altered or influenced by thought. Does, just like awareness, does now or the present have a shape? Can you say it's like a cube, or is it spherical? You can't, because what you do is you have there would be, if you try to say that, there's some kind of a thought form there, and the very having of that thought takes a few might be a millisecond of time to have that thought, because there was a moment when it wasn't there, and then it was there, and then it's gone. That's time. Might be super fast, but that's time, and that is not what present means. Present means this, now only, not a millisecond of means like is, not a millisecond of was or will be, which means no time. And what I'm saying is that through inquiry, we'll see that what is called awareness, in this unpin downableness of awareness, and what is called the now or presence, are just different word labels for this same ungraspable, unspeakable, unconceptually confinable, whatever. They're identical, and this cannot be made to go away. This is how life works, seems to function, so to speak. And as this, there's no thought of tomorrow. There's no regret over a yesterday. There's just like that camera lens. Does the camera lens ever think of what was in its field of view yesterday?
So would you say that this is the functioning in which life seems to appear to happen?
Yeah, and it can't be changed. And to try to oppose it by saying, okay, this is here, but this is not enough. This is not good enough. So I'm going to superimpose on top of this all of my thoughts and worries about what happened yesterday. I'm going to bring them, it's like a smudge on that camera lens. I'm going to bring that in. Another friend of mine put it beautifully. She said, it's like, if you remember, you don't see them these days, but the old slide projectors where it had the circular tray and each slide had its own little slot that it fit in, and you'd project that slide up on the wall, on the screen. It's almost as if, okay, this appears to be, in this, you say present moment, current experience, appears to be a slide being projected to awareness. There's no judgment about it. There's no attempt to hold on to what's in this slide frame. I don't want this to ever change. It's not doing that. It's not attached.
Awareness isn't doing that.
Awareness is, there's no attachment
but
to it.
Thought does do that.
Thought will do that, yes, it will try. And what happens is when thought tries to hold on to, let's say, something, maybe it's a pleasant memory, or maybe it's a regret that it just seems to want to keep going back to. That is exactly as if, here's this slide on the screen, and the tray has moved, but now it's as if two slides were stuck down into the same slot, and you're seeing the one picture that's naturally, normally, freely there, and then there's this other one that's superimposed right on top of it, and boy, does that distort the view. You know what I mean? It's a total distortion, and it's just this superimposed thing. And to attempt to straighten out what has been superimposed, starting there, that's where we get stuck, because it's just really clinging to it. It's like saying, okay, here's this secondary slide that got put on top, and wait a minute, don't move it yet. I gotta fix this here. I gotta fix this here. When if there'd just be a letting go, the thing would change, and the next slide would come up, and the view would be clear again. You can poke a load of holes in that example, but it's an attempt to point a little bit.